All right. So obviously we heard Trump say last week that it would be difficult for the United States to make a trade deal with Canada if we choose to recognize Palestine. That was right before the August 1st deadline, which was set by Trump for reaching a trade deal with Canada. August 1st came and went, and there was no trade deal. And now Trump has set 35% tariffs on Canadian exports that are not CUSMA compliant. So in retrospect, did Mark Carney make a mistake by announcing Canada would recognize Palestine before signing a deal with the United States? We know the United States has this unconditional alliance with Israel. Some might say an unholy alliance. I mean, they will support Israel through a genocide. They will support them through anything, right? If people talk about America first and cutting foreign aid, few people actually realize that Israel is the largest recipient of financial aid from the United States. And Donald Trump has shown that he can be manipulated by Benjamin Netanyahu. Can you believe that Benjamin Netanyahu actually convinced Americans that Iran tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice? He convinced Americans that Iran sent these two guys. Let that sink in for a sec. These guys right here. Anyways, I made a video about all that. You can go watch it later if you'd like. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll actually link it up there for you. So, did Mark Carney make a mistake? Let's talk about how this impacts Canada. There are people trying to say this is why Canada does not currently have a deal with the United States. Let's play a game. Hands up if you thought at any point in the month of July that the trade talks were going well. For context, Canada's original deadline was actually July 21st. Trump moved it to August 1st, basically unilaterally. And then in the course of the month, we heard Carney repeatedly try to reset expectations by saying that a deal without tariffs is probably impractical at this point. Then Mark Carney said he would only accept a deal that is good for Canada. By extension, that just means no such deal was on the table yet. In fact, Mark Carney said he would only talk to Donald Trump when it makes sense. That tells you that the trade talks were not going well, regardless of what Mark Carney said about recognizing Palestine as a state. But also, what is Trump's business with Canada, a sovereign country choosing to recognize Palestine? Like, what's his business? That's our foreign policy. And the fact that he would try to even bring that into a trade deal is actually a gross overreach. He is basically trying to dictate Canada's foreign policy. It's almost as though he already considers Canada as an American state. But this sort of abuse of power is not new for Trump or the United States. Here's a fun fact I stumbled upon. Did you know that 147 of the 193 members of the United Nations recognize Palestine as a sovereign state? Did you know that? Like, one of the reasons Palestine is not a full member of the UN is because the United States, a permanent member of the UN Security Council with veto power, has consistently used their veto or threatened to do so to block Palestine's full UN membership. Think about that. Think about that. Here's another interesting fact. Right now, Trump has 50% tariffs on Brazil because of what he deems a witch hunt against his personal friend, Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro, again, trying to influence the affairs of a sovereign country. Look, this isn't new. The United States has always influenced things abroad, but gone are the days when they at least try to maintain some sort of cover, CIA style. Gone are the days when they try to maintain the moral high ground while doing a bunch of shit down below. But also, when you think about it, Trump's negotiation with Canada has been a story of shifting goalposts. At first, it was about fentanyl. Then it was about illegal immigrants. Then it was about the trade deficit. At some point, it was about Chrystia Freeland and how nasty she was to negotiate with. Then it was about milk and supply management. Then it was about Canada's retaliatory tariffs. Then it was about the digital services tax. Now it's Palestine. And it is the disrespect at every single turn that pisses me off, personally. I think it is obvious that Donald Trump wants to subjugate Canada 100%. 100%. So just for the sovereignty of Canada alone, as a defiance to this looming shadow of the United States that would seek to subjugate Canada, I will say I fully support Mark Carney's decision to recognize Palestine. I hope he sticks to it. Also, Australia, the UK, and France have said they will recognize a Palestinian state as well. Some people have been using the UK as an example and saying they already had a deal with the United States and that Mark Carney should have waited to sign a deal before speaking on Palestine. Well, here's the thing. What the UK has is actually not a deal at all. It is a framework for a deal. They call it the deal, but it is actually more like a memorandum of understanding. The two countries still need to negotiate the specifics and actually implement the proposals. So actually, the UK doesn't have a deal with the US when you really think about it. But for some reason, Trump seems to have decided that he can bully Canada, and so he will. Look, if you don't like the sovereignty angle, we can also talk about the humanitarian angle in Gaza at this point. You've seen the pictures of the broken buildings and the broken people. Just this week, we heard that Israel blew up a tent housing journalists near Al Shifa Hospital. They ended up killing 5 Al Jazeera journalists. Guess how Israel justified this action? They said these journalists were advancing rockets for Hamas and that they were terrorists. And this is the pattern. Every time Israel bombs a bunch of civilians, they say there was a Hamas tunnel in the area. They say some of these civilians were terrorists. And they never provide any credible proof, by the way. Over 61,000 Palestinians have died since the war started, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. There is famine. People have nothing to eat. In case you were wondering, intentional starvation of civilians is actually a war crime. I know, right? Israel and the United States have also talked about permanent occupation of Gaza at various points. Israel has recently been discussing permanent occupation of Gaza. Donald Trump sees Gaza as prime real estate and wants to turn Gaza into the, quote, Riviera of the Middle East. Yes, he said that out loud. So what does the recognition of a sovereign Palestinian state do for these people? It can serve as diplomatic pressure to push Israel towards a ceasefire, or at the very least, it can push them to allow some humanitarian aid into Gaza. But here's the practical truth. As long as Israel still holds the United States' support, none of that diplomatic pressure matters. But regarding whether it was a mistake by Mark Carney to say we would recognize Palestine, I don't think it was. I don't think it is right for the world to stand aside and watch these people be exterminated off their land. It is not right. There is no justice in that. Even if the war ended today, it will be decades before these people are able to regain some sense of normalcy. Look, I stand with the civilians in Gaza, but I will not and cannot justify the fact that Hamas continues to hold Israeli hostages even now. They have brought great suffering upon these people. Those hostages are literally the only moral high ground that Israel has to stand on right now. If there were no hostages, Israel couldn't justify continuing to prosecute their campaign in Gaza. And that is the problem with these stupid wars. It is really innocents who suffer. Anyways, you guys let me know, do you think Mark Carney made a mistake by declaring that Canada will recognize the state of Palestine before signing a trade deal with the United States? You guys share your thoughts in the comments, and please subscribe before you leave. Like and share the video as well. It really helps others find my content. I appreciate you. See you next time, you guys.